Reports say Tyreek Hill is stepping away from the game after the 2026 NFL Draft ended with 0 offers. Since Miami cut him to save $23 million, the Cheetah hasn't recovered his footing. After that brutal ACL and knee injury, teams clearly weren't willing to bet on a 32-year-old with a $5 million price tag. But here's where it gets interesting in his final words. Hill calls out a rival AFC coach, hinting this might not just be about injuries or money. September 29, 2025, Monday Night Football, Dolphins versus Jets. Hill suffered a gruesome season-ending injury on national television during the Dolphins' 27-21 victory over the New York Jets and was taken to a local hospital. That is not the way anyone expected Tyreek Hill's 2025 season to go. During Week 4, Hill caught a 10-yard pass from Tua Tagovailoa, but was tackled out of bounds, causing his left leg to twist severely. The injury was so bad that medical staff immediately put his leg in an air cast before carting him off. This was not a typical football injury. He suffered a gruesome injury in which he damaged several ligaments, dislocated his knee, and tore his ACL. The broadcast cameras stayed on him as teammates gathered, some with hands over their mouths, some pacing, others kneeling. The stadium got quiet, the kind of quiet that tells you something is wrong. Tom Pelissero reported Hill was set to go under major reconstruction surgery on his dislocated knee, including ACL and multiple torn ligaments. Before that night, Hill had been putting up numbers. Hill recorded 21 catches for 265 yards and a touchdown last season in only 4 games. In the 4 games he played before getting hurt, Hill was on a 17-game pace for 1,127 receiving yards. He was doing what Tyreek Hill does, getting open, stretching the field, and giving defensive coordinators nightmares. And just like that, one play ended it all. The Dolphins limped through the rest of 2025 without him. The franchise missed the playoffs in consecutive seasons after reaching the postseason in the previous 2. The team that had been built around one of the most electrifying offensive weapons in football was now looking at a full rebuild. And the first casualty of that rebuild would be the Cheetah himself. Fast forward to February 2026. Early on President's Day 2026, weeks before the start of free agency on March 11th, the Dolphins released Hill. The Dolphins announced they would be parting ways with Hill in a move that reportedly saved Miami $22.8 million in cap relief. 10 years of elite NFL football, 4 years in South Beach, and it ended with a press release on a holiday. Hill's agent, Drew Rosenhaus, went on the circuit. Rosenhaus said his client is waiting until medical clearance to sign with a new team, and he wants to play for a contender. Rosenhaus called Hill's injury what it was, something more severe than the norm. This wasn't your run-of-the-mill ACLs, he said on the Stephen A. Smith Show. It was a multiple ligament injury, and he absolutely is on track for the start of the regular season. But weeks passed, then months. Free agency opened, teams signed their guys, and Tyreek Hill's name stayed right there on the board, unsigned. To understand why this situation is so jarring, you have to understand who Tyreek Hill was before that Monday night in September. Tyreek Hill was born March 1st, 1994, and played college football for the Garden City Bronxbusters, Oklahoma State Cowboys, and West Alabama Tigers, before being selected by the Kansas City Chiefs in the 5th round of the 2016 NFL Draft. 5th round, pick 165. That is where the NFL thought Tyreek Hill belonged, way down the board. As a project, as a long shot. A former track and field star, Hill played primarily as a return specialist as a rookie, but transitioned to strictly playing wide receiver, and following his rookie year, he received the nickname Cheetah in reference to his speed. Speed was the foundation, but it was not the ceiling. Hill refined his route running. He developed a connection with Patrick Mahomes that became one of the most fearsome partnerships in modern NFL history. Hill was an exceptional track and field athlete in school, selected by USA Today for the All-American track, and represented the USA at the World Junior Championships in Barcelona. This was a man who had been fast his entire life, not just football fast, but world-class fast. With the Chiefs, the accolades piled up like unclaimed luggage at an airport carousel. He was selected to the Pro Bowl in each of his first 8 seasons in the league, won Super Bowl LIV with the Chiefs, and was named to the NFL 2010's All-Decade team as a punt returner. That Super Bowl ring came at the end of the 2019 season, a period when Hill was at the absolute peak of his powers, turning routine plays into highlight reel touchdowns that made broadcast announcers run out of things to say. By 2020, Hill was firmly established as one of the most dangerous weapons in NFL history. He finished the 2020 season with 87 receptions for 1,276 receiving yards and 15 receiving touchdowns to go along with 2 rushing touchdowns, and earned a 5th career nomination to the Pro Bowl and was named a first-team All-Pro for the 3rd time. Those 15 receiving touchdowns were an absolute menace to defenses that had to pick their poison. Double him and leave someone else open, or single cover him and watch the Cheetah turn a short slant into a 70-yard sprint to the end zone. Then came the 2021 season, another relentless barrage of production. He finished with 111 receptions for 1,239 receiving yards and 9 receiving touchdowns, earning a 6th consecutive nomination to the Pro Bowl. But behind the scenes, things were shifting. Hill wanted to get paid. And the Chiefs, juggling Mahomes' massive extension and the rest of their roster, were not going to meet his price tag. On March 23, 2022, the Chiefs traded Hill to the Miami Dolphins in exchange for a 2022 first-round pick, a 2022 second-round pick, 2 fourth-round picks, and a 2023 sixth-round pick. And after the trade was completed, Hill signed a 4-year, $120 million extension that included $72.2 million guaranteed, making him the highest-paid wide receiver in the NFL. The Dolphins gave up a treasure chest of draft capital and then wrote one of the biggest checks in receiver history. That is how much they believed in Tyreek Hill. And at first, every single penny of that investment looked like a bargain. When Tyreek Hill arrived in Miami, the expectations were stratospheric. A speed receiver paired with Tua Tagovailoa in Mike McDaniel's motion-heavy, yak-driven offense. It looked like a match made in offensive coordinator heaven. And for 2 years, it was exactly that. Hill totaled career highs in catches, 119, and receiving yards, 1,710, in his first season away from Patrick Mahomes. And his receiving yards total set a new NFL record for the most by any player in their first season with a new team. Let that sink in for a moment. He left a system that was designed around him, and one of the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history went to a completely new team with a completely new quarterback, and somehow had the best statistical season of his entire career. That is not normal. That is not supposed to happen. But Tyreek Hill is not a normal player. Having reached over 1,000 receiving yards after Week 8, Hill was named AFC Offensive Player of the Month for October, and he became the first player in the Super Bowl era to achieve the feat of 1,000 receiving yards by the 8th game of the season. He was obliterating milestones that had stood for decades, making them look ordinary in the process. Then came 2023, and he somehow topped himself. Hill finished with 119 receptions for a franchise record 1,799 receiving yards and 13 receiving touchdowns in 16 appearances and starts, led the NFL in receiving yards and tied for the league lead in receiving touchdowns, and earned Pro Bowl and first-team All-Pro honors. That is back-to-back seasons of 119 catches and over 1,700 yards. The Sporting News named Hill the Offensive Player of the Year. The man was untouchable. But here's where the story starts bending in a direction nobody wanted to talk about. The cap numbers were tolerable when Hill was productive, but his past 2 seasons were a far cry from his first 2 in Miami. Over 2024 and 2025, he caught a combined 102 passes for 1,224 yards and 7 touchdowns. That 2-year combined total in yardage was less than what he put up in a single season in 2022 or 2023. The decline was visible even before the catastrophic injury. In 2024, Hill failed to reach 1,000 receiving yards, marking the first time since his early career that he had not been among the league's elite producers. The Dolphins finished 8-9 and missed the playoffs for the first time since the 2021 season, and Hill finished with 5-year lows in catches and yards. Following the season-ending loss at the New York Jets, Hill expressed frustration with the team, saying "I'm out," and changing his social media profile picture to reference Antonio Brown's dramatic exit from the Buccaneers. That moment sent shockwaves through the NFL. Was Tyreek Hill really comparing himself to Antonio Brown? Was this a genuine desire to leave or leverage for a new deal? Dolphins general manager Chris Greer clarified that Hill never asked for a trade, but the damage to the relationship was already simmering beneath the surface, a slow burn that the 2025 injury would eventually extinguish completely. He signed a 3-year, $90 million extension with the team in 2024, restructuring his deal, and essentially betting on himself to maintain his production. The Dolphins bet on him too, but football is a sport that punishes those bets without mercy, and it was only a matter of time before the bill came due. The Dolphins did not agonize over this decision. They could not afford to. Hill signed a 4-year, $120 million extension with the Dolphins in 2022 and agreed to a restructured deal in 2024 that pushed his guaranteed money to $106.5 million, an NFL record for a skill player. But he didn't have any guaranteed money coming in 2026, and the receiver still carried a $51.1 million cap hit this season. $51 million for a 32-year-old receiver coming off a dislocated knee, torn ACL, and multiple ligament damage. That math does not work for any franchise in professional football. Spotrac's Dolphins financial breakdown said $16 million of Hill's 2026 salary was set to become fully guaranteed in March, which meant the Dolphins had a deadline: cut him before the guarantee kicks in or absorb an enormous financial commitment for a player who might not be able to play. Sullivan was adamant on establishing a new culture within the Dolphins building, and that usually involves significant roster moves. Sullivan is a believer in developing through the draft. The 4 cuts, including Hill, cleared over $56 million in 2026 cap space, as head coach Jeff Hafley and general manager John Eric Sullivan began to completely remake the roster. The Dolphins weren't just moving on from Tyreek Hill. They were burning the house down and starting fresh. Once the Dolphins decided to move on from both their general manager, Chris Grier, and their head coach, Mike McDaniel, it only figured to be a matter of time before Hill joined them in packing his bags. To Hill's credit, he handled the release with composure that surprised some people. "Miami, you have became my home." But the journey doesn't stop here. Hill wrote in an Instagram caption following his official release, "The love I have for this game is unexplainable. And right now, this offseason, for the first time ever, the Cheetah is all the way turned up and locked in. Focused. The Cheetah don't slow down. Ever. So to everyone wondering what's next, just wait on it. The Cheetah will be back." Except the Cheetah did not come back. Not yet. In the 12 days since the Dolphins released Hill, no other team emerged as a serious suitor. And during 4 days at the scouting combine, no one said anything to suggest that a pursuit was happening or looming. The NFL Combine is the league's annual marketplace. Teams talk, agents hustle, deals materialize in hotel lobbies and steakhouse booths. And nobody was talking about Tyreek Hill. Andy Reid, the man who coached Hill for 6 years in Kansas City and turned him into a superstar, was asked about a potential reunion. His response was lukewarm at best. "I don't even know if Tyreek is healthy right now to do anything. There's nothing happening there." Those are not the words of a coach campaigning for a reunion. Those are the words of a man who has moved on. Free agency came and went. Hill remains a free agent, sitting on the board alongside other big names like Deebo Samuel, Stephon Diggs, Keenan Allen, Bobby Wagner, and Joey Bosa. But none of them carry the weight of a decade-long career defined by speed, a Super Bowl ring, and 5 All-Pro selections. And none of them had posted on Instagram that the Cheetah will be back, only to hear nothing but silence in return. Hill reportedly listed his $7.7 million Florida mansion for sale. The 32-year-old star receiver announced a store closing event in Miami. These are not the actions of a man preparing for a football season. These are the actions of someone winding things down. So here we are. It is late April 2026. The NFL draft just happened. Teams have drafted their future. They've signed their free agents. They've filled their rosters. And Tyreek Hill's phone has not rung. Let's be honest about what is stacked against him. Having been released by the Dolphins, Hill now finds himself an unrestricted free agent for the first time in his illustrious career. And at 32 years old with declining numbers, coming off a season-ending injury, and having risk factors off the field, he is a risky player to sign to a multi-year contract. That is the cold clinical assessment. No sentiment, no highlight tapes, just risk evaluation, which is exactly how NFL front offices think. He is 32 years old, which matters because age plus a major knee injury is a harder bet than age alone. And that combination is why Hill's next destination may take longer to materialize than a typical star receiver move. The question every general manager is asking is not whether Tyreek Hill was great. Everyone knows he was. The question is whether Tyreek Hill can still be Tyreek Hill after a dislocated knee, a torn ACL, and multiple torn ligaments at the age of 32, when his entire game was built on being the fastest man on the field. His significant knee injury could jeopardize that speed, and Hill himself didn't shy away from the notion of retirement back in October 2025. But Hill might just be the unique player who can recover from this and continue to make plays. That is the tension at the heart of this story. His body says one thing, his career resume says another. Let's look at the resume one more time. Hill is an 8-time Pro Bowl selection and won a Super Bowl in Kansas City to end the 2019 season. His 11,363 career receiving yards rank 9th most by a player in his first 10 seasons in NFL history. And his 28 touchdowns of 50 yards or longer are the 4th most all time. That is a Hall of Fame career. That is the kind of production that gets your bust in Canton, Ohio, regardless of how the final chapter plays out. But retirement is a strange thing in the NFL. It does not always come with a press conference and a standing ovation. Sometimes it comes with silence. Sometimes it comes when a phone stops ringing and a player realizes that no team is going to call. Sometimes it comes on a random Tuesday in April, when a man looks at his knee brace, looks at his phone, and decides he has had enough. Hill talked about retirement years ago, back in 2023, when he was still in his prime. He told a podcast, "I'm going to finish out this contract with the Dolphins, and then I'm going to call it quits," saying he wanted to get into gaming and business. He later walked that back. "I can continue to play this game for forever. I feel like I'm feeling great. Obviously, I'm still fast." That was the summer of 2023, when the world still bent to his will on a football field. Now the world has changed. The Dolphins have moved on. With both Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill exiting this offseason, Malik Washington currently sits atop the Miami Dolphins wide receiver depth chart. The Chiefs gave a polite non-answer. The Chargers, the Bills, the Ravens, the 49ers, all teams that were mentioned as potential landing spots, have made their moves, and none of those moves included Tyreek Hill. Drew Rosenhaus said his client is waiting until medical clearance to sign with a new team. But there is a difference between waiting for the right moment and waiting because there is no moment coming. Some teams may be wary of adding him before they can see him work out, especially given how significant the injury was. That is the charitable interpretation, that teams are simply being patient, waiting for Hill to prove he can still move the way he used to. The less charitable interpretation is that the NFL has quietly decided that Tyreek Hill's career is over. Even if no one wants to say it out loud, as of today, Tyreek Hill has announced his retirement from the NFL. The Cheetah has stopped running. Whether he was pushed out by injury and age or walked away on his own terms is a matter of perspective. What is not a matter of perspective is the legacy he leaves behind. 819 receptions, 11,363 yards, 83 touchdowns, a Super Bowl ring, 8 Pro Bowls, 5 All-Pro selections, and a nickname that every football fan on the planet knows. The fastest man the NFL has ever seen has crossed his final finish line. Whether the league respects what he did enough to remember it properly, that is the next chapter of this story. And Tyreek Hill, whatever he does next, DJing, car dealerships, gaming, coaching, or just living his life, will always be the Cheetah. No injury and no amount of silence from 32 front offices can take that away.